It's that simple. Let's start with talking about rich snippets. This is tip number 4. So we want to add rich snippets to improve your website's visibility on SERPs. So tip number 4 is all about rich snippets. So let's start out by asking ourselves, what is a rich snippet? So rich snippet is simply just a term used to describe structured data markup that you as a website owner can add to your HTML. So hypertext markup language, or HTML, is what basically constructs a page. So if we can add more information to that, that will in turn allow search engines like Google to better understand the information that's on that web page. So the more Google understands about that web page, the more they can put into the search engine results page. So rich snippets is basically some structured data markup that we can add to our existing HTML. And so if we want to add rich snippets to search engines, then how would you prefer your products to be displayed? Well, if we have products, then we want to make sure that maybe we have reviews, or maybe we have other information in there, like links to our site. Okay, so there's a lot of different types of rich snippets that, we can add, that Google can recognize and add to the search engine results. So if you have a product, then there's a lot of things we can add, like specifically product reviews. So we want to be able to add more information to the search engine results by working in some rich snippets. So basically the whole idea is to set up the rich snippet to drive targeted traffic. Okay, so because the more information in the SERP, the more likelihood you're going to get the click. And the more likelihood that click is specific traffic. So some of the benefits of structuring the data for rich snippets are, as I mentioned, increasing click-through rates, also increasing conversion rates. So when you get the traffic from organic search to your website, if somebody's looking for a specific product and you have a number of different good reviews showing up, let's just say 5 stars out of 5 stars, and you have 100 reviews showing 5 stars, then, somebody's probably going to take some trust in your brand, and your conversion rate probability is going to go higher. It also helps improve your search engine visibility because you're adding more information. So in other words, the more Google knows about your page, the likelihood it's going to rank that page. And it's more likely that that information that's contained in that rich snippet is going to get featured in either the knowledge graph, which is that graph on the right side, or in a featured snippet, which usually shows up at the top of search engine results. So in other words, the more information you give Google, the more they can use that information on their search results page. And there's no disagreeing that the more information that you have in your search engine result, the likelihood of getting more traffic increases. So for rich snippets, you could always start with images. So some of the common properties that you can add to your product page, if you have a product page, or just a page itself, is an image. You can always start there. You can always add a description. You can always add in ratings, and you can always add in reviews. So these are some of the most common attributes you can add as a rich snippet. So if you add that, Google picks it up. It's going to include that information in the search results. Okay, some others are offers, prices, site links, links to your site, and product availability. So all that information can be conveyed to Google. Google understands what you're trying to pass along. It's going to include that in the search results. So did you know that according to Ahrefs, over 99.58% of featured pages that have structured data already rank in the top 10 list of the Google search results page? So in other words, if you have rich snippets in your page, your chances of ranking in the top 10 of a Google result is going to be very, very, very good. Okay, let's talk about tip number 5. Optimize your site structure for a great user experience. So let's go over some of the tips that you would do for planning a good website for SEO. And so tip number 1 is you want a URL structure that follows your site's navigation hierarchy. So obviously homepage, interior pages. So depending on what type of site you have, obviously the navigation needs to follow that site's navigation, that site hierarchy. And it all starts with the homepage. You want to optimize your homepage to drive traffic to your product pages. So the homepage is nothing more than a doorway into your website. And so the site's navigation should link to all those different products. So if you have an e-commerce site with subcategories or categories, subcategories, then you want to be able to make sure your navigation reflects that. You want to build a comprehensive structure for internal linking as well, because when you're from the home page, obviously you want to be able to easily navigate to other pages. However, when you're on other pages, you want to be able to have a link pointing back to relevant pages and not necessarily on the home page. So this serves two purposes. One, for the end user. Obviously, you want the end user to navigate through your website seamlessly, right? Second, for the search engines. They're following links. They want to be able to understand how your website flows and links together. So you don't want a scenario where it's a one-way street from the home page to interior pages. You want basically home page to interior, interior to other relevant interior pages. And that could be a lateral, or that can be a situation where it's a hierarchy. For example, homepage, category, subcategory, subcategory, etc. You want to be able to make sure your site is constructed in a manner in which the search engine can read it. So CSS or cascading style sheets or hypertext markup language, HTML, are your two most common languages. That's basically what browsers load. That's what search engines like to index. It just makes it easy for them to understand what your page is all about. Remember, we talked about rich snippets in the previous tip. Rich snippets are nothing more than supplemental HTML to describe what the page is all about, so that the search engines can understand that page and include reviews or include site links in the search engine results. So this is all based on HTML. So the more you provide the search engines in a more structured manner via HTML, the more the search engines are going to understand the page. Adding breadcrumbs to your product pages is also a good practice. If you have an e-commerce site and you have a category, then a subcategory, then a sub-subcategory, then a product page, well, it's probably not a bad idea to make sure you have a breadcrumb so that way somebody can easily go right back from the product page to, say, the category page or to the subcategory page directly without having to hit the back button or having to go through the navigation. Some good examples, I think Amazon does a good example of using breadcrumbs, given the amount of products they have on their site. So go check out Amazon if you want a good example for breadcrumbs. And then canonical tags. We want to make good use of canonical tags, and that's in order to avoid duplicate content. So a canonical tag is nothing more than a link element, basically, or an HTML element that basically prevents duplicate content issues. So in other words, if we have a canonical tag as a meta tag, basically we're telling the search engines, this is the preferred or canonical version of a web page. So use this web page. So it signals to the search engines which page they should basically index and pay attention to, and avoid all the other pages that have similar content. So that's the idea behind a canonical tag. So that's a good best practice. And then optimize your site for desktop and mobile. I can't stress the mobile part enough. Most users begin their journey on mobile. So if you're not sure about what the search engines like or don't like, you can always refer to Google Search Console for an example. So if you go to Google Search Console, they have a report called Mobile Usability. So if you click on Mobile Usability, you can see what pages they like, what pages they don't like from a mobile perspective. And if you have errors, they're going to tell you what those errors are. So if your website has text that's too small to read, they're going to tell you that these are the pages with this error. And so that allows you to go and address those errors, because from a Google perspective, if a page has a mobile usability error, then Google will not index that page. So leverage Google Search Console to get a sense of what type of errors your site has from a mobile perspective. You also want to prefer to keep your checkout page simple. So again, from an e-commerce perspective, you want to keep the checkout page as simple as possible for obvious reasons. You want the end user to have a good experience, and you obviously want the conversion. So when I say keep a checkout page simple, really now with today's technology, you can create a one-page checkout process. You want to optimize your sitemap. So when we talk about sitemaps, we want to make sure that it's a file, an XML file that basically includes all of our URLs. And we can then turn around and give that sitemap to the search engines. So if you have a sitemap in XML, make sure you go to Google Search Console. So if I go to Google Search Console and I click on sitemaps, I can just simply tell Google where my sitemap is located. And when they recognize that sitemap, they're going to be able to basically index the URLs from that sitemap. So we could see here how many URLs they discover and how many they index. So make sure you create the sitemap in an XML format, submit the sitemap via Google Search Console, and then you can go back and see how many pages they've indexed versus how many you've submitted. And you want to make sure that sitemap is dynamic, meaning anytime you publish a URL, that URL is added to the sitemap. Fixing broken links. So broken links is not something you want, but it's something every website has. It's unavoidable. People publish pages all the time. There's test pages. There's all sorts of reasons why a site has broken links. You want to be able to address those. And again, going back to Google Search Console, we can basically see, just by looking at some reports, what pages have broken links and which ones don't. So we could certainly look at Search Console to get information about basically what pages are broken, which ones aren't. And then we want to prefer predictive searches and integrate product typographic errors on your search bar. So basically have a search bar that's a best practice, but anticipate knowing what people are typing in. So that means maybe going into Google Analytics and looking at the search terms report. So we can go into analytics and look at search terms to get a sense of what people are searching for. But, when we talk about integrating product typographic errors, we're talking also about fonts. So we want to make sure we're using the latest fonts so that we don't run into any issues on our website, people not being able to read based on a specific font that you're using. And then as a best practice, what I found, and this is not necessarily for everyone, but using a live chat widget sometimes helps. In fact, I would even go beyond sometimes, most of the time, again, depending on your business, but I see most businesses now have live chat enabled. And so basically having live chat enables somebody who has a question to immediately reach out to somebody versus picking up the phone versus sending an email. It's just instantaneous gratification in some ways. So inserting live chat on a website is more common practice than not nowadays, given it lends to a better user experience.